Hello there, I'm Dejan and welcome to a new video. I'm gonna keep this very briefly and I want to talk a bit about numbers with you because that's something that I haven't done yet. I have now Steam charts in front of me here open and I was going around basically what has been the first month, like the first 2 weeks basically of the release of Season 2. I wanted and I said in live, recorded a couple of videos about Season 2, about communication and everything, and then I really felt like I don't want to publish this because this is how this game is making me feel now. It really made me lost the feeling and vibe that I had for the game. This said, now here you can see the numbers basically all reflected here. Let me zoom in a bit so you can see them better. So they look like an art bit obviously, and you can clearly see how Tekken has a daily cycle with this peak being every day at around 3-4 PM GMT, which is London UK time. Now you can clearly see this Season 2 release date, which peaked at 16,091 player, which is the highest peak since basically May. But if you go to check on Street Fighter 6, obviously what I'm going to do is not comparing directly one-to-one the numbers, but to try to give you a proportional idea of what's going on in the game. If you go to check on the month of the release of Season 2, which was June, like was summer of last year of 2024, Steam chart, the graphic, honestly, it loses everything, all the details after a while. Unfortunately, it just gives you the general monthly value, obviously, because otherwise it would crash. But we can see them over here. These are the value from June, and you can see that while Tekken replicated basically what was his best fifth peak character concurrent player time, Street Fighter scored his second best. Actually, not even. That was the month before, which is probably when the season was announced. This gives you an idea about what an healthy system is, you know. And as well, if you go on average players, you can see that basically was almost even with the second best month he had at the time, which was the second month of release. So which means that basically the Street Fighter managed to retain the player base, which is not a real retention. It's not that all the people that bought the game and played it until July are still playing it in June. Most of them, yes, but it's more that the one you're losing along the way for the natural cycle of the game. You basically re-earn it with new players coming in. And you have this recycle of player, and basically you create a bigger player base that with the time rotates, and when there is a bit of hype with the game, they go to play all together and creates the spikes that Street Fighter has all around the time. 69 here, which is the one I said earlier, 49, 54,000 player here, 62,000 player here, and as well here on the average player base you can see it when you have 20,000 players, 16, 13, and generally speaking, if you see the tendency here, you can see that between October and April, the lowest average player base was around 11,000 players, and then it started to rise up steadily after Season 2 release with 13,000, 14,000, 13,000, 13,000, 13,000, and that's the new lowest peak, which brought an increase of 2,000 players as an average, which means that the tendency of the game is to actually gain players. How many of these are Tekken players? Well, I probably think there is a decent chunk, not the old 2000 obviously, but there is a decent chunk that are Tekken players. But Street Fighter is doing a great job. They're gonna do a great job with the game, and you see with this number. And you know what other game was actually behaving like this? That's obviously Tekken 7. Now, if you look at the number of Tekken 7, obviously you can see they started quite slow. Yet, the numbers are way below Street Fighter and not way below Tekken 5, but substantially below Tekken 5. There are 1,000 different arguments you can do for this, especially Tekken 7 was released as well on PS4, which was a way more common console than PS5. Everyone had a PS4, PS5 is a bit more common now, and as well the PC gaming era wasn't what the PC gaming market wasn't as developed as as strong as it is now, I would say. I remember at the time having a gaming PC, it was, in the moment probably was a bit a niche, because before that, I remember when I was a kid, it was very much, everyone was having a PC, but PS4 was such a good console that basically no one needed a PC for. PS4 was a very good console, it was solid system. But basically what you can say here, that after the big release, Tekken 7 stopped to be in the average players between the 2 and the high 1000 and the 2000, with something called 3000. This is probably season 2, I expect. But the nice thing is that you can see the tendency of Tekken is to increase and increase. So here we have 2 to 3000, 2 to 3000 player, 2 to 3000 player, and then we get in May 2021 when you get to 5000 players. 5, 4, 5. And we go back, and now it's 3 to 4,000 players, 3 to 4,000 players. You see, and you're always gaining player base. They're always increasing their player base steadily. They obviously lose a bit, but then when they increase, they go back to losing a bit. But what they increase is so much higher that doesn't make them basically lose player base. They're only increasing their numbers. You can see that it's been doing that basically, and it stopped up around the 4,000 on the 5,000 into some period of time, into the most popular Tekken has ever been, Tekken 7 has ever been moment. And then it steadily stopped between the 4000, and then when they get announced, Tekken 8 gets announced, obviously there is the dying part of the cycle of the game, and the numbers start to decrease. Obviously, as it's natural that it is, it goes to still 3000, very healthy number, and at the end of the day concludes with still 3000 to 2000, very high 2000 average player per month, which is very good. Maybe might not be as good as you think on the raw number, on the raw amount of players. Yes, I can see that point, but the tendency that the game had during its life cycle, it is healthy, because throughout the time the game always gained more players. You can see how green and red on this chart, apart at the beginning obviously because you have the big amount of casual living, it's quite even. For many reds you have many greens, actually more greens sometimes. You can see it. Now, let's go to our nice Tekken 8. It's obviously in the middle of his life cycle, is in the biggest crisis that Tekken has ever been. And you can see that he never had a real moment where he gained back players. The only spike that you can see here are when the DLC character have been released. But apart from that, the tendencies have been actually either zero or going down. And you can see that. The biggest spike, arguably, you can say is been can only like this. October, which was a Heihachi release, which was obviously the juggernaut of a character, the big hitter of the DLC. Definitely not Clive. Definitely not Clive. Even if he brought a nice pick, it didn't change as much the average player base, always keeping it steady in what it was. And the crazy thing is that even with the release of the Season 2, the average player base is still around the same. The only thing that is changed is the peak player base. And I'm saying all this thing because I saw an article from Event Hub saying that the game Tekken 8 Season 2, everyone is complaining about it, but numbers are not decreasing. It's like, that's not about it. The Season 2 should bring back a lot of your lost player base throughout the year. Plus you should add new players. But if you do a rough calculation, for instance, which I have it here, you can see it here in all the history, this is the average player base of today. It's 5,436. This is the average player base, which is the same one the March had. So basically, the people that dropped Tekken before Season 2 is not playing anymore. And what's happening more probably is that more people dropped it because these numbers are inflated by these crazy numbers of the first 3 days of Season 2. which crazy are not as much, because literally when you have a season 2 dropping, which is the biggest and most important update of a life cycle of a fighting game, and you lose half of your player base in 2 days, and you lose 10,000 players in 1 week on your peak, that's absolutely a message that something is really wrong, and we are all aware of that. So yeah, this video is more to address people that still says that players are not quitting. Really, what triggered me is Event Hub, which is a very questionable journal. There are news that says that basically the players are not quitting, but there is a clear tendency here. There is a tendency that is not bringing new players into the game. The player numbers are only be decreasing, and when they increase, they don't increase for that much. You just have your spike and then you go back to square one in 1/2 months. And here, this number here, 5,400 concurrent players at the moment as average player, is already at the same level of the peak of Tekken 7. So the lowest point of Tekken 8 is started to cross with the highest point of Tekken 7. Now it started to happen, which is something that did not happen until last month. We got close a couple of times. So it's clearly not, I'm not saying oh the game is dead, I'm not saying anything on this, but what you need to analyze as well, what you need to take in consideration, what kind of perspective you want to have when you watch this number, when you look at this number, is this game life cycle is long. And if this game don't gain players and don't retain them, it's not gonna survive 5 years. I mean 4 more, because it needs to survive 4 more years apparently. It's not going to happen. And it's concerning, because if this happens and this game fails as bad as is apparently failing now, it's not failing, it's not directly failing, but if it keeps on, if it's a ship that is getting water in, and if it keeps on getting as much water as it is getting now, we might not have a Tekken 9. And for someone that played this franchise for basically all his life, it's really something I would not like to see. But let me know down below, which Tekken are you playing at the moment? I did a dive into all the Tekken arcades on Steam, on stream. I did until Tekken 5, and then I have Tekken 6, 7, and probably gonna do Tag 1, maybe Tag 2 if I manage to find a way to play. I got a PS3 because I wanna play some Tekken 5 DR online, and I'm kind of happy of this situation because it made me rediscover all the old Tekkens that I used to play very casually, and now I can play them a bit more competitively, with a bit more competence. I can see way more what there is in the game, what there was already in the game and was not yet there, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Anyway, let me know down below if you're playing Season 2, if you are not playing Season 2, which other Tekken you play, if you're playing Virtua Fighter. I'm very curious about that. But apart from that, I've been Dejan, you've been awesome, and you see you next time. Ciao! And please don't forget to subscribe.